love to give you a little more framework. So I host the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world. We're at approximately 24 million downloads, and my focus is multifamily. We do bring in some other asset classes, but it's almost 90% multifamily. I have a coaching program, mentorship program. They're called my Warriors, and my Warriors now own somewhere between 210 and 220,000 units that we know of. It's probably more than that. We can't keep track under my tutelage. And so, yes, I live, eat, and breathe multifamily. I own thousands of apartments myself. Luckily, I love what I do, so work is play.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today's guest is an entrepreneur, real estate investor, multiple business owner, author, mentor, and community philanthropist who's passionate about business, life, success, and giving back. As one of the country's top real estate trainers, as well as, he has one of the top commercial real estate podcasts. We're talking 20 plus million downloads, massive. He's personally owned and managed over 2,000 properties, not units, properties. Today's conversation is just one of those opportunities where you just get to have a real sit down connection with a person has been so successful, has done so much to give back, share, bring others into the community as well too, in the multifamily mastery community. There's just so much. He says he's transparent to a fault almost. And that's where we're really going to dive into that genuine connection with the guest today and talk about the commercial atmosphere that we're in. What does it look like for multifamilies? What's causing the problem and how do we avoid it moving forward? And better yet, how do we take advantage of it? Everybody, please welcome Rod Khleif to the show. Rod, welcome to the show, man. And you've done plenty of these, so I'm ready to get after it. How about you?
Let's do it. Let's have some fun.
Man, so many places to start, so many things to talk about. But first of all, just in case the listeners don't know who Rod Khleif is, why don't you give them just a brief introduction of you? Summarize it all here in about 30 seconds. How about that?
I don't know if I can do it in 30 seconds. But, there's a lot of ups and downs and all that. But, I'm a Dutch immigrant, immigrated when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert and my mother Svantje. Ended up in Denver, Colorado, where I lived for 30 years. Didn't have much growing up. Wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army and ate expired food and woe is me, but we mustered through. My mom had an incredible work ethic, babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And she became an entrepreneur with her babysitting money, bought the house across the street from us when I was about 14 for about 30 grand. And then when I was 17, told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep that had gone up in value 20 grand. And I was like, screw college. I'm going to get into real estate. So I got into real estate and, my first year made 8 grand. My second year, maybe around 10 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was some pretty decent money. Yeah. And so, people ask what happened between year 2 and year 3. Well, what happened was I met a guy that taught me about mindset and psychology, how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. And so, fast forward to today, I've owned a couple thousand houses I've rented long term. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a real estate god. And, when that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smackdown. Well, that was 2008 and 9. I lost $50 million in that crash. And so what I'm known for talking about on my podcast and at my boot camps is really the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. And then maybe more importantly, what it took to recover, from that back to the success that I'm blessed to have today. So happy to talk about that some if you like, or happy to talk about anything you like.
Yeah. And I always like to kind of give just a preface or an introduction too, because I always warn people on who they're listening to. Obviously, we've got to expand our associations and we've got to learn, but I always want to make sure that people are learning from people who've been full cycle, who are operators, who know the ups and downs and have the experience. And in my world, Rod, you are one of those guys. Because I heard about you before I even knew who you were, based off of what you're doing. So I just want to make sure the listeners know that this is not just a part-time thing that you're going out and doing. Like, this has been your life, is your life, and it's your passion.
Well, I've led to give you a little more framework. So I host the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world. We're at approximately 24 million downloads, and my focus is multifamily. We do bring in some other asset classes, but it's almost 90% multifamily. I have a coaching program, mentorship program. They're called My Warriors, and My Warriors now own somewhere between 210 and 220,000 units that we know of. It's probably more than that. We can't keep track under my tutelage. And so, yes, I live, eat, and breathe multifamily. I own thousands of apartments myself. Luckily I love what I do. So work is play.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the podcast, what's the name of your podcast?
Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing.
Lifetime Cash Flow.
Yeah. And I wrote a number one best-selling book, best-selling in 3 categories. Yeah, I've got it right here on the floor. Hang on.
It was reaching down to ground.
It's called How to Create Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties, and I give it away for free. If you go to rodslinks.com, rods, RODSLINKS, rodslinks.com, it's there. You pay $6, so you get the physical copy. Just pay the shipping. And there's a bunch of other free books there as well. They're best in class books in some cases. So
we actually met. I think that we had reached out to get you on the show, but we actually met on your Facebook group. I made a comment on your Facebook group, and you responded back. And I absolutely love that, because no matter how big you are in it. You are with your warriors. You are, in the ditches, helping people get to riches, basically. But we had met on there. Yeah, go ahead. What do you?
Well, I was just going to say, when you love what you do, work is play. You never work another day in your life, and I freaking love this. Yeah. So that's why. I love the interaction. I love the communication, and I've got a wall in my other office that has hundreds of thank you cards on the wall from students whose lives have been impacted by my work, and it's just a huge blessing and a gift. So that's why I'm very interactive. Every one of my students has my cell number, and just love it.
And that post, I was actually looking for resources in a particular market, and you instantly warned me of a particular market, and based off of something very unique. This stands out to me. I've never heard anybody relate this to the condition or quality of a market. I don't know if you remember, it was actually about car accidents. And how that
I know specifically.
What in the world are you talking about, man?
No, I know specifically. Do you want to publicly say it? Because I'm happy to.
Yeah, go. Absolutely. I don't have anything from anybody.
At my boot camps, I ask, is anybody here from Memphis? And nobody. And usually they're afraid to raise their hand because they know I'm going to dog it. Listen, there's some wonderful people in Memphis, but I got to tell you, I feel like my IQ drops when I fly over Memphis airspace. I had a horrible experience there with some real estate, and the example I gave you was I lived there for a couple of months, and I owned a couple of hundred houses there. I mean, I bought houses. Just so you know, I bought 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses for $1,500. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I regretted it, to give you an idea. Okay. And I've owned over 2,000 houses but anyway, I lived in Denver for 30 years. There's 2 million people in Denver. And in the morning, you'd get the accident report from, on the news stations. There'd be maybe 1 to 3 accidents in the whole city. Okay. You go to Memphis, it's like 400,000 or 500,000 population. Every morning there's 18 to 20 accidents. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's what we call a clue. Okay. And so anyway, it was a debacle for me. And I will tell you, it's a huge crime rate there right now. It's horrible crime. I had a property manager embezzle $100,000. I even had her sign a confession, and the police wouldn't do anything about it. I mean, I could go on and on. But anyway, yes. So that was our interaction, and that's why I brought that up, because to me that was very telling.
And to link that together, when you say the accidents have something to do with what the condition paying the rent,
I just feel like it speaks to the. And I'm going to get some hate for this, but I feel like it speaks to the IQ of some of the population there. And that's not a racial thing at all. My wife was black, so it's not that at all. It's just a Yeah, I'm going to get hate for this, but that's all right.
Yeah.
That's why I said it, because
Right, it's
you know
tough.
it just is it's a tough market. It's a tough demographic. A lot of professional renters. It took me sometimes a year or more to get renters out of my properties that weren't
Professional
paying.
renters.
Oh yeah, professional in court renters.
Yeah.
It was just a shit show. Bottom line, it was a shit show.
You
And
know what
and
makes
that
it? It makes it so rough, Rod. It's hard to cut you off when you talk about, oh, I'm gonna get shit for this. This is gonna be tough. When you start talking about color and you start talking about this and that, and the other thing, it's so hard. This happens even in church, Rod. This happens where this comes up, and it keeps us held back from making progress when it's related to that. When you're not thinking that, I'm not thinking that, the person sitting next to me is not thinking that. But when that's brought in, it just messes.
Well, I'm the least discriminatory person you'll ever meet. To me, I just don't like stupid, and there's a hell of a lot of stupid there. That's my point in that comment. Period. So
I was even telling you so I was just there. It was just a few weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that. And in the morning, I was going out to the gym, and I'm just cruising along, windows down. All of a sudden, crack right in front of me, right where I was. I was just in that lane, and I got over, and this lady hits this minivan, about turns it over. We're in a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, Rod. So it struck me like,
I rest my case. I rest my case. There you go. You had to see it firsthand. Listen, there are some wonderful, beautiful people in that city, and there's a lot of morons, and that's my point. And like I said, I feel like my IQ, I don't even want to fly over Memphis airspace. I feel like my IQ drops. So that's a joke, obviously, but that's my point.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, just like everywhere else, there's definitely areas, as you move farther east in Memphis, the property values go up, crimes go down, schools get better. So these pockets, and then even on the inside, what I call Midtown, it feels like it's changing a little bit. But what I tell everybody too, like, if you're buying a house for $1,500, that to me sounds like it was probably 10, 15 years ago or something, maybe on tax sale kind of things. But even
I bought a bunch of them. I bought 200. I bought them for 3,500, 5,000, 10,000, 12,000, 15,000, and I regret it. Yep. I'm just telling you, I regret it. It's challenging to find good contractors there.
Yes,
it's challenging, and the renters are just a nightmare. And so now this is, of course, a C minus class or C class renter. Okay, you get into Germantown and some of the nice areas there, and you're not going to have that. But the demographic I was in was just a nightmare.
It's hard, and I always tell everybody is you're going to get what you pay for. And even if I buy a house, one of the first ones I ever bought, Rod, was $15,000. I put $18,000 into this house, renovated it. I got a nice return. Now I'm getting like $1,200 a month of rent of this thing. It's a really nice return. No matter how good I screen my tenants, Rod, I cannot, this is not in Memphis, this is actually in Michigan, but I cannot control the neighbor next door or the what do you call a horrible landlord, slumlord next door, the drugs next door after that. I cannot control any of that. So I'm getting what I'm paying for.
Well, that's why I like multifamily, because not only that, you can't raise the values like you can in multifamily. With single family, you're relying on comparable sales comps, and so you can't dictate what comps sell for. In multifamily, you basically create the value based on your improvement of the net income. So any improvement of the net income is an exponential improvement of the value. I'll give you an example of this. So we've got a 296 unit asset in San Antonio. And this is an example I use a lot just because it's kind of gripping. And so we painted the parking spaces with numbers. Okay, we numbered all the parking spaces, and we told the residents, hey, if you'd like your own reserved spot in front of your unit, we'll let you reserve it. First come, first serve. It's $25 a month. You get your own spot. We had 100 people take it. Okay, to give you an idea of the impact of that, it is a. Hang on one second. Hang on, I just got to check something. Okay. It is a it's a $750,000 increase in value at a 4 cap. Okay. So now I'll get some hate for that because people don't understand it. But what you do is you take the 25, you multiply it times 100. That's how many people took it. And then you annualize it. Okay. That's $30,000. Then you divide that $30,000 by a 4 cap or a 4% capitalization rate at $750,000. Instant increase in value. That's why we love this business, because you can ramp the value like that based on your efforts. Now that's a simple example. Most of the time you're going to go and fix units up, increase the rents, get that net income up. It's called the NOI, the net operating income. Get that up. And it's about $17 to $20 for every $1 you increase that income annually. So it's a beautiful thing.
So going to multifamily from single family, I feel like we could talk for hours and hours on this stuff. But what I want to jump in on is being in the multifamily world where you're at now, helping all of these other people. What is the current landscape of multifamily deals in this environment? I mean, because things feel like they're crazy, right?
There's a lot of deals in trouble right now. I'm even in a few that are challenged from an ex-partner. There's a lot of deals in trouble. And because these guys, they got bridge debt, which is adjustable rate debt. It wasn't meant to be long-term debt. So it's 1 to 3 year debt. Right now, I think there's about $1.5 trillion in debt due in the country. And a good half of that is multifamily. And if you've got that debt that's due, you have two options. One is you can sell, which sales are down about 90% right now, or you can refinance, which is very challenging because you have to buy what's called a rate cap, like where you're making sure the rate's not going to go up more than a certain percentage when you take this loan out. Those rate caps have gone through the roof. To give you an example, in 2020, you could do a rate cap of 3%, where the rate's not going to go up more than 3% on a $100 million loan for 3 years. So you borrow $100 million, you're buying this rate cap. So for the next 3 years, the interest rate's not going to go up more than 3%. That was $23,000 in 2020. That same rate cap 2 years ago, which is the last time I checked, was $2.3 million. Okay. And that was 1 year. Couldn't get 3 years. Forget it. That was 1 year for $2.3 million. So these rate caps kill people. And in our world, the lenders are looking at the property's ability to service the debt. It has nothing to do with your debt to income. It's all about the property's ability to service the debt. It's called the debt service coverage ratio. Okay. And so, a lot of these properties aren't breaking even because the rates are so high. I know we've seen a 50% 50 basis point drop in interest rate, 0.5% interest, but that hasn't even affected commercial real estate yet. So, that's the problem. And so a lot of deals, and what's happening, in fact, I just saw something, Commercial Real Estate Daily today in my email, where basically lenders are just kicking the can down the curb. And there was a term they used. Let's see if I can find the email while we're talking here. But there was a term they used for it in what these lenders are doing. And because the problem is, if they foreclose, it goes on their balance sheet. So they want to push it off as long as they can in hopes that the rates will come down, things will stabilize. But God, I get a lot of emails a day. But anyway, I just love that. I should have had this ready for our call because it's a great quote that they're saying. Here it is. Extend and pretend. That's the quote about regional banks delaying in addressing the loan issues. I mean, let me tell you something. That's just multifamily. What's happening in office is we're at about 50, 60% occupied nationwide in the office sector. And I'm going to tell you, a third of all that debt is held by small and regional banks. And I'm telling you, the piper's going to get paid here pretty soon. I don't care who wins the election. I don't think if Trump wins, he can stop what's going to happen. And that said, I pray to God he wins. But anyway, yeah. I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's, it's very interesting too. Again, the thing that sets us apart, and earlier we were talking about things, whether it's color, race, or whatever. This is another thing that sets us apart when it comes down to the current platform. So this show is actually going to air really quick, but we're here in the end of 2024. Obviously, we're one week away from voting for this, and in an election where somebody who has a lot of experience in real estate versus somebody that has virtually no experience in real estate. I don't know the other candidate very well, but I don't know of their particular experience in real estate. So huge thing that separates us here. I don't want to get off topic and into that because we could definitely go down that road. But with this thing that's going on, I heard you say that the proverbial shit was about to hit the fan. Is what exactly are you talking about? The loans?
I'm talking about all this debt coming due that these lenders can't keep kicking the can down the curb. And so they're going to have to start foreclosing. And so there's just going to be a ton of opportunity to buy deals. I'm going to be putting together a distressed asset fund myself to buy deals. And, I just think there's going to be incredible opportunity. And if you don't mind, I'll mention my boot camp real quick. I've got a boot camp coming up, a 3-day boot camp. It's the only live one I do each year. It's in Orlando. It's November, 8th, 9th, and 10th. I always get the dates wrong, but it's coming right up, literally a week from when I think this episode's going to air. Yeah, it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. And it's 3 days of training. And if you want to check it, if you want to come, you can come for $197. And it's not a big sales pitch. I talk about my coaching for like 30 minutes. If you're interested in that, fine. If not, no big deal. You're going to leave knowing what you need to know to get started in this business. But if you go to rodslinks.com, again, rods plural, links.com, rodslinks.com, and you go to the bootcamp site, when you check out, use the code mogul and you get that $197 price. I mean, the price will end up being about $600, but you can come for $197, and it comes with some incredible bonuses. You get my document library, my deal evaluator software, so you can evaluate deals. You get my Finding Deals course, and you get the recordings of the event. I mean, that stuff's worth thousands of dollars, so it's a screaming deal if you're interested. But the reason I bring that up is, incredible opportunity is coming in my space for sure. I don't know that it's going to come in the single family space just because there's such a huge pent up demand for housing. But in my world, the commercial real estate world, there's going to be incredible opportunity. So if there was ever a time, it is right freaking now.
And that's not a sales pitch to sell coaching or anything like that, because I've heard this across the platform, so many different resources saying this. Maybe said it just a different way, but it is coming. So getting ready. Question I have, Rod, is what skills need to be honed in order to prepare for the next 6 to 12 months? So we don't
courage,
something like this, right?
Yeah, courage for sure. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, one of the first things we do at my boot camp is goal setting on steroids, because how do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You got to know what it is you want and why you want it. And the news is going to paint this horrible picture when things get really rough, which they're going to, especially if Trump wins, because the news hates him and they're going to make him look bad at every turn. And so they're going to say real estate is doomed. Back in 2008 and 9, they said real estate would be horrible for 10 years. Well, multifamily rents exceeded pre-crash levels in less than 3 years, of that crash. So, but you're going to get a lot of fear. And that's why the goals are so important. It's so critical to know what it is you want. Focus on that. Don't get caught up in the fear. And so, because whatever you focus on gets larger, right? Positive or negative. So be very conscious of that. That's huge. So that's the first thing we do. But really, the bottom line is you've got to decide what your vehicle is going to be to capitalize on this. And I'm going to tell you, I think there's going to be incredible opportunity to buy businesses as well. If there was two of me, one would be buying businesses, because there's 80 million baby boomers and a bunch of them have businesses and they want to retire. So there's going to be an opportunity to buy those as well. But, if you're going to get into real estate, I'd encourage you not to do single family, just because, you can only go so far. I mean, I don't want to discourage you. It took me 2,000 houses to get that memo, but it's just easier in multifamily. Okay. It's more scalable, and it's safer, frankly. When I lost $50 million in 2008 and 9, I had 800 houses and I had several apartment complexes. It was the houses that pulled me down. My apartment complexes did just fine. If I hadn't cross-collateralized those with packages of houses, I'd still have those apartments, because they pulled back a little bit, but they could have easily survived. And so, the multifamily is safer in a downturn, because, if you've got a house and it's empty, you're 100% vacant. If you've got a 10 unit and you've got a couple empty units, chances are you could still break even. So I love multifamily, and I got that epiphany when I lost everything and realized that I could have survived if I'd just been in multi. And that's why I came back, wrote my book, to focus on cash flow. The subtitle of this book is The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, i.e. focus on cash flow. And that's going to be really applicable right now. Don't call me and say, hey, I can buy this property for $1 million that they bought for $3 million 5 years ago. I don't care. What's the cash flow look like? That's all that matters. So remember that. If you don't remember anything else from this particular episode, is that if you're going to buy real estate, the only thing you should focus on is the cash flow.
In a lot of times, we'll hear that equity creates the wealth and it's a long-term game. But if that asset cannot sustain itself, there is no long-term gain. It's over. So how do we underwrite deals now to avoid the problem from happening? Like, how were we supposed to underwrite these deals 5 years ago to avoid the problem that we're in right now?
Well, first of all, you have to be conservative. Okay. There's no aggressive right now. You got to be super conservative. But listen, I spend hours on this at my boot camp on how to underwrite a deal. So I don't know that we're going to have time to give you very many answers right now as it relates to underwriting. And that's, and I've got software that does it for you, which is kick butt. I mean, it's so good. And it's free when you come to the event. Even if you don't come to the event, you should just get the recordings and get the software. Hello. I mean, and I've got tens of thousands in my documents that you get. But regardless, and by the way, back to goal setting for 1 second. If you can't make the event, when you go to Rod's links, if you go to the bottom, you'll see my goal setting workshop. I did it there, I think last year. It's got a guide you can download. Here's the thing, Brett. People spend more time planning a freaking birthday party than they do designing their lives. Doing your goals is designing your life. Do it with your spouse. If you got kids that are over 10 years old, have them do it. Let me guide you through doing your goals. Takes about an hour. You're going to love it. You'll be juiced and, and get your children set off right as well. So anyway, that's on the goals. But, now I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, as you're talking about underwriting these deals.
Underwriting.
What could we have done differently 5 years ago to not get into the situation that we're in right now?
Well, it's the quality of the debt. See, things were going fast and furious, and people use this adjustable rate debt because they got a higher loan to value. See, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is the conforming debt that you want, that's the ones you want to. That's the debt you want. They had lowered their loan to value ratios. In some cases down to 60%, definitely down to 70%. Well, bridge debt was still giving you 80%. And so it's like, we could still get 80% loan to value. So they do that. And the going in rate was 2.8% or 3.2%. Well, now it's 9%. Okay. And so they're dying. I mean, I looked at an asset in San Antonio where the lender was requiring reserve payments that used to be $8,000 a month. They went to $80,000 a month. Okay. I mean, do you think that impacts your ability to maintain the asset? So that's what's happening right now. And like I said, a lot of lenders are doing deferments, they're called, or they're doing loan mods, and they're kicking down the can down the curb for a year or two. But I'm going to tell you, mark my words, the piper is going to have to get paid. And when it does, there's going to be carnage and there's going to be great deals. But it takes time to get up to speed. It takes time to learn how to underwrite a deal. I'll spend a couple hours at my boot camp on it, but then I'll say, hey, when you do your first one, it's going to suck because it's going to take you all day, but you're going to get to a point where you can do it in 30 minutes. Okay. But that's going to take, repetition. Repetition is the mother of skill. You got to just practice. And so that's what it takes. But you'll get to where you can smell if a deal's a good deal, but you've got to jump through the hoops and go through the pain. But here's the other thing about my business is it's a team sport and you don't have to wear every hat. I'm not an analytical guy. I can read a P&L, but I don't like it. Okay. A profit and loss statement. I don't like it, but I can do it. I'm the mouthpiece. Okay. I'm good at talking. Never knew. Who knew? I didn't know. I was embarrassed to talk in front of my classroom when I was a kid. Now I speak in front of thousands of people a year, but there are different hats you can wear. If you're analytical, you can be the one that underwrites the deals. If you're, more outgoing, you can be the one that builds relationships with sellers, brokers, investors. And so, if you're very process driven, like maybe you've been a manager, maybe you've been in construction, or you've done some asset management or project management, you could do the asset management after you buy the asset. So there's different hats you can wear in this business. You could do investor relations where you're talking to investors. So, and I'm going to tell you, yes, you need to understand all the other pieces, but you don't have to do them all. I'm going to tell you, play to your strengths and you hire, align, or partner for your weaknesses. And that's a match made in heaven. When you can get an analytical person with an outgoing person, they're playing to their strengths. Because when you're playing to your strengths, you love what you do. Like I love this. And you really never work another day in your life, and you're passionate. because you're loving it. You're in the zone or the quan, like Jerry Maguire talked about. You're loving it. And when you're doing that, people can feel your passion and they want to work with you. So, don't build your weaknesses. Focus on your strengths. That's what you bring to this business, and hire a line or partner for your weaknesses, and my God, success is inevitable.
That's also a challenge right there, though, Rod, because I think I can touch on a sore subject for you. Your values have to align when you're finding. We can't always pick the right person, but the values have to align. If the values don't align, then the partnership doesn't work. And that's
correct.
Kind of, what have you learned, or what are you learning that you can disclose right now about your ex-partner that you're talking about?
Well, I don't need to talk about him, but I can give you an incredible resource. Okay. A partnership, like a marriage, is easy to get into and hard to get out of. Okay. And I've had great partnerships and I've had failed partnerships. And I will tell you that you need to ask all the hard questions up front. And so in the last few years, I've created this resource that's at Rod's links. It's the questions you should ask before you get in a partnership. It's got about 50 to 100 questions you should ask about every aspect of getting into a partnership. It's one of the free books there. There's a bunch of free books there. Some of them are best in class, but use that book before you get into a partnership with someone. And so ask all those questions. What happens if we don't get along? What happens if I work harder than you? What happens on and on and on? But here's the other piece. Use the book, but also trust your freaking gut, okay? Mm-hmm. Your gut is so powerful, okay? Your brain is so powerful. It can pick up on these micro nuances that you're not consciously aware of. And so, there's a great book about this dynamic called Blink. The author is, I think, Stephen Pressman. And in it, one of the examples he uses is an art expert can look at a painting and they know it's a fraud, but they don't know why they know it's a fraud. It's the same thing with a person. When you're meeting with somebody, if your gut doesn't feel right, trust it. I can tell you every time I've ignored it, I've regretted it. And you may not consciously be aware of what's triggering it, but trust it. So
interesting. What does your gut tell you about me?
You seem like a genuine guy. Seem like a genuine guy. I don't feel any bullshit at all, brother.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And living my life to that point, completely transparent, disclosing everything. It's important. And you're right, man. You can feel that way. Like I'm saying, when I'm having this conversation with you, I know that you're talking real life stuff here. So that genuine piece is interesting. I just got off a different podcast and we were talking about, just kind of joking around, that they had to practice or rehearse or prepare for a podcast, and you can't. When it's genuine, there's nothing to learn here. I'm not reaching back. Hey, if I could pull all these little one-liners out of my bag, Rod, and say, about all my self-development stuff, I would love to be able to do that, but I can't do that. The thing I can be is genuine. I can tell you what I know, what I don't know, things where I would like to grow, and that's important.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm transparent to a fault. Sometimes my mouth gets me in trouble because I just say it, but I will tell you that the word that's used to describe me most often is authentic. And I'm proud of that because I try to be authentic and live by a code of values, and integrity is my number one core value. Do what's right, even if it hurts. And, there you go.
Yeah, genuine and full of integrity. Those are huge things. And to me, it aligns with a different standard. My life is based off a standard that is set, that's from a higher power. And it's something that aligns and drives me. It's where it's not up to me. It's simple. It's about a bigger book that I read. Hey, what's one piece of wisdom that you'd pass on to those aiming for lasting impact outside of real estate?
I'll share a story with you. So I grew up in Denver, but I always knew I wanted to live on the beach. And of course, there's no beach in Denver. But I would visualize the beach and the palm trees and the surf and the sand. And 20 years later, I built what's now probably about a $25 million mansion on the beach. I owned the beach on one side, I had my boats on the backside. And I literally just went there yesterday on the jet ski, and the dock is completely destroyed. There was a covered dock. Everything's gone. I felt so terrible for them, the family that bought the place. But anyway, so I worked for it for 20 years. Just to describe this thing, 3 stories, beach on one side, boats on the backside. It had a giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get the pool. Pool was in magazines, big spiral staircase up through the middle of the house, wine cellar, elevator. On the second floor, I had aquariums built around the staircase that cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the house. So 2 months after I moved in, So again, I worked for this thing for 20 years. 2 months after I moved in, I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, because really I built it to prove the world I was good enough. And I'm like, if that didn't do it, then by God, I better go to bed. But anyway, I'm looking up at this thing and I got depressed. And I don't mean a little depressed. I mean, I got really depressed. I'm like, what the hell? I've just achieved success like times 10,000. I had my Maserati and the Mercedes and the boats and the jet skis and all the crap. I had all that. My family's inside sleeping. What could I possibly be depressed about? Well, there were several things. One is from the good book. Without a vision, the people perish. I didn't have a vision for the future, so I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that was one thing. The second thing is it's never about the goals. You need them to create that burning desire to go out and that hunger to go do something, but happiness comes from progress and growth. You know, they say the happiest days of a boat owner's life are the day they buy the boat and the day they sell the boat, which is funny because my boat ended up 3 houses away in this last hurricane. Yeah. But anyway, but the bottom line is it's never about the goal. It's not about the goals, but you need them. But the big thing was I'd been totally focused on me, Brett. It's like rod. Show the world I'm good enough. Show the world I matter. And that's the year I went and saw Tony Robbins, because I'm like, man, I got to get this back. This is ridiculous. So I went and saw Tony and saw he fed families for the holidays. And I called my brother when I got home. I'm like, bro, let's feed 5 families, because I was going to Denver and it was Thanksgiving. And so we bought food for 5 families, frozen turkeys, toys if they had kids. He called a church to find out who really needed help. We got 5 family names. And the third family changed my life, brother. We go up to this house, had all the food on the porch, boxes of food and turkey and toys. The woman was there with 5 kids, a Hispanic woman, lived in this crappy 1-bedroom, wasn't even a 1-bedroom really, and with these 5 kids. She saw all this stuff and she started crying. Her kids come out, a couple of the older ones started crying. I started crying. And I'm blessed to say, and there's a message here, don't leave me here because it's not ego what I'm sharing here. In the last 24 years, I've fed over 150,000 children here in Sarasota and Bradenton, Florida. I've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies. We did 1,700 in August of this year. I've done thousands and thousands of teddy bears to give to police departments for officers to put in their vehicles if they encounter a child that's been in a traumatic situation. And I don't say this to brag, but we've been taught that we shouldn't be happy until we've achieved. That's kind of like this U.S. American motto, like, don't be happy till you've actually achieved. Well, if you give back in any fashion, you're happily achieving. And I know it's a play on words, but Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement's a science. If you want to learn multifamily, get your ass to my boot camp. I will teach you. You'll leave knowing what to do, okay, in 3 days for $197. Tell me your excuse. But that's a science. I'll give you the blueprint. You just got to do it. But fulfillment is an art. You got to figure out what juices you. For me, it's kids. Maybe for you, it's the elderly, the environment, animals, whatever it is. Give back right now. Don't say, oh, well, you had money, that's why you did it. You want the money? Do it. You'll get the money faster. That's the way God works. But no, you don't do it for that reason, but that's the way it works. And so, pick something you're passionate about and give back right now, and you'll be happily achieving and you'll be fulfilled. I know it was a long answer to your question, but I thought it was relevant.
It's beautiful. And in the moments of, that third family and what they did for you, standing in those moments where you can take that selfish, selfless piece out of the equation in understanding. In this book that we've referenced, sometimes I jump around it, balance off of it. It's the Bible. It is the best personal development book that will ever be written. All the answers are there. And we joke about this. If you want to hide something from somebody, you put it in a book, right? And so few people in the world actually go through and read these things. But all along inside of there is this idea of being able to give without somebody having the opportunity to be grateful for it back. I mean, those are the moments where you can remove yourself. And the thing I'm struggling with, Rod, is finding this place where God wants to use me, where it's not about Brett. Like I'm trying to find, hey, what's my gift?
You started it with your podcast, brother. Yeah. This is, I can tell you, I'm sure you get feedback about your show, and that's the start. That's how I started. I remember when I 100 episodes, and I started taking free phone calls from my listeners. I did hundreds of these free 30-minute phone calls. I had nothing to sell. Just said, let me just help you if I can. And again, I'd give you the same answer. Figure out what really juices you and give back there, because that's a freaking life, man. It
is, man. That life change. I know exactly what you mean on that. Just that moment is just where it's different. Things are different. The world's quiet. Everything's different. in that moment. It's like, that's where we're supposed to be. That's where we need to be. It's not on that fancy house in between the two pieces of water with the $200,000 staircase. And now what, Rod? What are you going to do, Rod?
It's not about the Lamborghini, the Bentley, the Rolls Royce, all the stupid shit I've done over the years. It's about making the world a better place.
That's amazing. Man, what a better note to kind of sign off here on this one, Rod. I am so grateful for your time.
Thank you.
And what you're doing, not only for the warriors in your life, but for the warriors who can't fight for themselves. Those moments of giving back and learning more about you in our conversation here, Rod. Man, it is... express my gratitude for those who haven't been able to say thank you to you.
Oh, that's very kind of you, brother. Very kind of you. It's a pleasure to meet you, my friend.
Absolutely. Pleasure's all mine. This last time, this is coming up in Orlando, the boot camp, the dates one more time, Rod.
November 8th, 9th, and 10th. It's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the day after your episode airs here, because I know you're airing it this Friday. And if you go to rodslinks.com, and if you can't make it, go there, because my next event will be virtual. It'll be a few months down the road, but there's a ton of free resources at Rod's Links. Do the goal setting workshop, for God's sakes. Please do that. It'll really help propel you and set you off. And again, use the code MOGUL to get that $197 price, because it's going to be a lot more than that in the website. But, and if you can make it, I promise you'll be glad you came. And in fact, if you come and you don't love it, I'll give you your money back. I don't mean like it. I mean, love it. Okay. And I've never had, out of, I don't know, 10, 12,000 people that have come, that's never happened, but there's a first time for everything, I suppose.
Yeah, right. We're going to air this on this Friday, the 1st of November, which would be next week. So it would be 1 week and then the weekend away. My birthday is the 10th. Maybe I will just talk my wife into just taking us out.
Oh, buddy,
go to
please
Orlando. Come on, man. Meet Rod.
You'll love it, brother.
Man,
you'll love
we'll
it.
do some live posting right from there.
You'll love it.
Come on, get down here. Let's go.
Let me know. Reach out to my team. I'd love to see you there, brother.
Awesome. Thanks again, Rod. And signing out here, I can't say it any better than what we went over here today. Just bouncing back over the big book and being who you need to be in order to reach those goals. Those goals we set out, and let it be a magnet, but let the real light be the good person that we are, that genuine, authentic, full of integrity. And with those things, putting your attention on the right thing, you'll be able to give more than you could ever receive and receive more than you can ever give. What a beautiful place to be. This is the Real Estate Mogul MD.